Hello and welcome to our first Unheard Masterclass. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Um, right, this, as I say, is the first in our series of masterclasses. We will be having a deep dive into all aspects of marketing, promotion, and audience development with some experienced experts over the next few weeks, hopefully giving you some insights, hints, and tips to help you run successful marketing campaigns. Over the coming weeks, we'll be doing sessions on the use of AI in music creation, creative marketing strategy, TikTok strategy, optimizing your work in streaming platforms, and lots more. And we'd love to hear from you as well afterwards from what you'd like to hear more of and for us to focus on. First, though, we're kicking off today with a Q&A session about how to build a marketing timeline. The format will be quite fluid, mainly me asking questions to our guest, Matt, here, on how he builds campaigns and what goes into them. Please ask questions in the chat as we go, and we'll try to get through them all during the main Q&A session or at the end. So, Matt, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I've known Paul for a few years now. I started sort of in the music industry, I suppose, in retail in 1990. Worked for EMI as a sales rep from 96 to 98. And then in the EMI label as a product manager from 1998 for about 10 or 11 years. And then left to work at a company called Zenomania, which is a successful, mostly writing and production company. That was with the intention of setting up a label, which managed to get so far with, but I'll stop there on that particular bit. But I've been working as a freelance, initially marketing manager, but moreover full campaign manager for the last 15 years now. So I've got good experience going back to the retail days through retail. And then, like I said, as a sort of basic product manager at EMI in a major, and then 15 years of mostly independents, but the odd crossover with major labels and also companies like BMG that are probably somewhere between the two, as is being discussed a fair bit now within the industry. So most of it's independent artists and labels that I work with, and plenty of them.
Amazing, thank you. And I should probably actually have introduced myself a little bit before as well. So, yeah, I'm Paul. I work at Unheard. I've had just over 20 years of experience in the music industry. Most recently, the last 10 years of which I was general manager at AWOL, so overseeing and running marketing campaigns for artists like Little Sims and Lauv, Jerry Cinnamon, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Jungle, Girl in Red, and many, many more. And I've been lucky enough to have worked with Matt a few times over those years. Most recently, actually, we worked together on a #3 album for the K's last week. So hopefully we'll be able to pool our collective knowledge and experiences to make today's session something that's quite useful. So starting off, I'm going to try sharing my screen and kicking off by, is that showing up okay?
Yeah.
Starting off with a question of, Matt, what is a campaign timeline?
Well, I suppose, like, in terms of recent examples, we can actually talk about the K's there. They've been around for quite a few years around Manchester. I'd seen them on and off for maybe the last sort of 5 or 6 years, something like that. And I've got friends that are working with them. So they've been around, gigged, released songs, built up a really solid fan base. And I basically started working with them, I think it was like July, August last year, when I noticed that they announced a show at the Academy in Manchester, which I think is about a 3,000 capacity. So I just presumed that they were going into like album territory at that point and thought I might be able to help. So as you said, we released the album a couple of weeks ago, but I knew that to make it work, it would take a fair bit of time and effort and team building to be able to do it properly, which is exactly what we did. So the timeline going into that was working out how long we thought we should go from the point that we were to actually releasing an album, and then working back from there to all the levers that you need to pull to make it happen to maximum exposure, I suppose, and chart as high as it could. On a debut, so it was uncharted territory for them, and also the biggest album that the label Blab Records it had to date. So there was a lot of things that we weren't entirely sure what we were walking into, apart from the quality of the album and the loyalty of the fan base. But it did all pay off. Obviously, we had a good charting album. But in terms of, they've been around for a few years, so it was actually a relatively straightforward process, because they built the fan base, made the album, and sprinkled their own bit of magic over the top of it. So it was successful and a lot of work, but it was also relatively straightforward to put together, because everybody had historically done such a good job with them. In terms of newer artists that are maybe earlier on, or there isn't an album yet, we were talking about this before, and I think to a large degree the campaign timeline is kind of like, what do you want to do, what do you want to release, and what do you want to achieve, so that you're not, as has happened for a long time, even, you know, I guess like sort of prior to the way that people stream and consume these days, but going back maybe even like 15 years or more to like SoundCloud, where I think there was a lot of people around the world that would post songs and basically wait for things to happen. That still goes on these days, as we know from the volume of releases that go on to DSPs every hour of every day. So the main campaign timelines that I personally put together are normally single or album oriented. When it's a single, it doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you're thinking about. It could be a single that needs to come out by a particular date because an artist's got some tour dates lined up, or other sort of events, or other fan interactions, or whatever. If it's an album, it normally takes a bit more, because it would take more time. Mostly when I'm working with people in terms of album campaigns, you're having to think about a number of things, like how many releases do you want to appear before it, what level of promotion do you want to get, and what do you actually want it to do? Do you just want to get your music out there and heard by people, or is it intended to sell? Is it intended to attract media attention? It's looking at all of those various angles. So, I mean, in terms of the detail for it, so you and I have been talking about this a couple of days ago. I don't know whether that's like a screen grab down, first of all.
Yeah. So would you say, Matt, that really the importance of a campaign timeline is really so that you've got a framework to be working from. So if you're starting your campaign and outlining your objectives and your targets, then you've got a framework to know, actually, this is how we're going to deliver it, and this is going to be our Bible almost. I think that's how I often look at it. Is this is our Bible that everything roots back to. And so from the moment you map it out, you're working from that. Even if it changes, it's still what you're going back to.
Yeah, there's always a big degree of fluidity to it, because some things will go better than you wanted to, and some things won't go as well as you expected them to. So it's being ready from all sides. But I think that's the best way of putting it. One of the things that I sort of tried to remember, especially with newer artists and younger ones, and I don't mean this in like a weird sort of pedantic ways, and I said this to the K's when we met up towards the end of last year, like, don't forget you are actually supposed to enjoy this. Like, you've made this music, you've got people that really like you. What my job and the management's job and the label's job to do is put the sort of relatively boring skeleton infrastructure around it that just embellishes what they're already doing. They'd already got a UK tour lined up, so not that we had to, but the best thing for us to do was just make sure that the album would come out before that was truly underway. And they've got a Manchester show happening this Friday, so it's perfect timing. But just like, on the whole, as much as there are certain things that you would recommend most people to do, especially in early stages. It's still supposed to be sort of to your benefit, as in the artist's benefit and interest, as much as it is anybody that's around it. So that there is the structure that's necessary for it, but just not to make everybody's lives a complete bore off in the process. And why ever that particular artist is special should never go away from it. But at the same time, I'm sure you find the same, that one of the things I explain to people, no matter where they are, in terms of life or objectives and careers and so on, is that I think anybody that's worth their weight in terms of like embellishing communications to an audience, a structure is really important. It should be fluid. Don't get me wrong, that you put certain things in place at certain points, but there's no way that it doesn't help in terms of people being able to look at your plans. Not that you need to always be thinking like 2 or 3 years ahead necessarily, as much as it's nice to have sort of end game objectives, so to speak. But in the short term, anybody from live to DSPs, distributors, like whoever, everybody likes a plan. And it might be boring, but I think it just really help anybody that's going to be involved at like any point to know what you're doing in the short and medium to long term.
And would you say, is there a set timeline framework that you work from, or a template that you use?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like we've been discussing, if somebody came to me saying, I've recorded half a dozen tracks, I've done X, Y, and Z, what do you think we should do? If we were looking at working out a launch track by somebody that had released something before or not, then you still need to be aware that like most, I think most of the digital aggregators that you can upload music to the DSPs through, they normally work on like a 4 to 6 turnaround time, so to speak, in terms of like if you were delivering something today, and you're looking at 4 weeks release, then it would be obviously end of April, because that gives them time to ingest properly and go through all the seemingly boring but important stuff of being able to pitch things properly to each DSP, and then enable the artist to do Spotify for artists and so on. I mean, prior to that, like we'd said before, there's the conversations about making sure that you've got the right aesthetic, the right creative, and the right plans of your own life, and everything else that's supposed to go with it. But yeah, the boring side of it is that rough sort of turnaround time, and then amazing radio uploading a few days before release. If it's a UK artist, BBC introducing, making sure that you do the pitch.
Shall I show you? I was just going to suggest pulling up. So there's a couple of questions come in about whether we'll share these slides, which we will share them afterwards, and a couple of templates that we will share with everybody here as well. And the first one of which I think might be quite useful for us to have a little look through, Matt, is this next slide here, which this is a bit of a framework that you have pulled together for us here of roughly how you, when you're working with artists and with management teams, how you structure your timelines, and sneak preview ahead. Is it's fair to say it's a Microsoft Word document or a Google document, isn't it? It's that we're not looking at anything overly complicated or complex with it. It is as simple as just laying things out in a clear and simple format. But I mean, it might be useful just to sort of run through how you would have sat down and thought about this and started putting this together.
Yeah. No, like we're saying, it's based on somebody effectively wanting to release like a single, in the boring bits and pieces and the more interesting things that you'd need to do. So even if somebody came to me with like a song that I thought had some potential to it and then more songs beside, but you were looking as to how to get the first single out there, it might be a little bit exaggerated in terms of how long it could take, but alongside the music, I'd be working on all sorts of like artwork, videos, photos, all creative elements that you would want to use between telling the world that this is coming and then it's actually existing. So you've got plenty of time to do that. Then at the beginning, so this is again like a hypothetical release schedule, but at the beginning of June, as I was saying before, getting these bits and pieces into whoever the distributor is. So the WAV of the audio, high-res artwork, label copy, which is basically, it varies from distributor to distributor, but it's normally writer, producer, any particular catalog number. You might have a label name if you want one, although it's not necessary these days for independent releases. An ISRC code, which is just a code that gets allocated to every version of every song to make them trackable for all manner of reasons, including getting yourself paid and possible charts, but it's just the unique code to that particular song. The UPC is the barcode, and ISRCs and UPCs can normally be generated by the distributor, but if you've got problems with that, it's easy to Google it and work one out for yourself. When that's been in the system for a few days, you know, if not sooner, you'd probably have a DSP pitch form, which is the way that the music and the plan gets pitched to all of the DSPs, Apple, Spotify, Deezer, the other ones that exist further around the world as well, just to make sure that they know what you're doing, why they should be interested. That sort of infers that, it is there for editorial playlists, but there's probably a separate topic there of not having your campaign geared around having to be on something like New Music Friday or the other equivalents across the other DSPs, but we can come on to that. So I'm working on the basis here that having delivered those parts at the beginning of June, sorry, mate.
Sorry, just to interject slightly, I was going to say maybe we could jump ahead into the specifics of that around DSP pitching and just to give the full sort of background on that. And so DSP just is digital service provider, the catch-all term for Spotify, Apple's, Deezer, YouTube, Amazon, and so on, many more around the world as well. So I think for me, that's always one of the most important things to be looking at, is making sure you are giving yourself that lead time to actually pitch and make the digital platforms aware of your release coming. And yes, a small part of that should be New Music Friday, but it should be a small part. It's also about making sure that you are getting into the awareness of the editors through the official channels. The official channels being Spotify for artist pitching, Apple Music for artist pitching, what your aggregator or distributor may be doing as well. And if you haven't got an official way of doing that, go through all of their support systems. Get the information to them, make a noise to them. You can find editors yourself online potentially as well. There's through a little bit of researching to actually DM them. Be that on Twitter or on Instagram, whatever it is, you can find some of those details and make them aware of your music. But going back to the timeline within all of this, I think that does take time. At the end of the day, it's not getting your music, delivering it, and releasing it 4 days later gives you zero opportunity for anybody to actually discover that and to listen to you and decide whether or not to even give you any editorial playlist. So I think it's just really worth highlighting that sort of 6 weeks, is the usual, isn't it, for actually delivering of the music to the aggregator and distributor.
Yeah, and it sounds like a long time, and especially in theory, when you could upload anything to YouTube or SoundCloud now and people can hear it straight away. But if you want to sort of have a ticket to the lottery effectively, then you do have to play that particular game. And also, there's a fair point there as well, in terms of the Apple obviously sees Spotify as competition and Deezer, but they also all see YouTube and SoundCloud as competition as well. So what we tend to do is have everywhere at once rather than letting one lead over the other, because we've all seen this before and most people do that. But if you do go with one ahead of the other, then any planned support from one of the other places might disappear. Not that you'll know, it's a bit, to some degree, you don't know what you've not had. But if you want to have a chance, you do the whole lot at once. And And also in terms of the pitching that goes into the editorial teams, I've worked with a few artists over the last couple of years, and I'm sure you have, where they've actually increased streams and followings on Spotify through third-party playlists as well. So if there's anything that, like, you know, I follow a few on there myself, obviously, I'm sure a lot of people do, not just the editorial ones. So if there are ones that you're particularly into, I think almost no matter what the size of following, if it's something that you like and you think your music could fit onto, then most of them in the details, especially on Spotify, they're contactable. So, well, hit them up, have a list of people that you want to approach to support you in the same way that you can contact certain DJs at Six Music, John Kennedy at Radio X, and so on. All these sorts of, I'm not a huge fan of the word, but like the gatekeepers. Like there's enough people that you can contact direct yourself and see what comes of it. But yeah, the Spotify side of it in particular is important, because when you have had a few releases out and you do have followers, then if you're pitching in time, you'll at least be in the release radar playlist, which does tend to be one of the main drivers for continued plays on that platform, and then does end up feeding other algorithms that you might start to appear in, that will up your numbers. And then if you're exposed to more people listening to that haven't heard you before, and they go to your profile and hear more music or see something that's interesting, then you've got followers. The monthly listeners is one thing, and a lot of artists ask about it on a regular basis, which I understand, but I'm more into how many people are actually following. The listeners thing is one side of it, so it's not saying it's not important, but like I personally, if I get exposed to something new, then the next thing I'm going to do is properly follow it if they seem interesting and I might like some more music by them.
Yeah, I think that's really key as well. As you said there, it's some of those algorithmic plays are essential, as well as having that time for pitching for editorial. Is that by pitching through, for example, Spotify for Artists, anyone who follows you will automatically get your new release into release radar. Anyone who's listened to you recently as well will get music into their release radar, which means you're immediately driving first week streams. That in turn leads to more feeding of the algorithm, because it's showing that there is demand, that there are people listening to your music. Now, there's other tricks and things to do in a similar vein, such as pre-orders and pre-saves, where you're driving people through socials and through other activities to pre-save your track before it comes out. Now, those numbers can be quite modest, but again, when cumulatively, it means that you are driving a number of other people to the platform to listen to your music. All of those things feed in turn to showing that there is demand and that there is interest in your music. And again, along with a number of other best practices that you can do on the platform, shows to Spotify through their algorithm that you are engaging properly with the platform and doing everything that they want you to be doing. And by the way, we'll do another session on this at some point in the future, specifically around Spotify, but wider on streaming platforms. But just that all feeds into then much more chance of getting onto Discover Weekly playlists, and some of the other algorithmic playlists. So that really, for me, shows the importance again on the timeline of giving yourself that time for those release radar plays, and also for having a pre-save phase to a campaign.
And it's good to know about the other playlists on the like, whether your favorite platform is Spotify or Apple or whatever, the more niche ones that are geared around like the sort of music that you might be into as an artist, or the sort of music that you make. Because not all of them, but a lot of the distributors ask for what playlist do you want to be on. And as much as everybody sort of understandably talks about New Music Friday, I think most people would agree that, like, if you're not in the top 20, which would sort of insinuate that you're one of the key acts within there, if you're down at like position 73, then it's great for you to be able to say that you're in New Music Friday, but you probably won't see your streams or followers go up drastically off the back of it. Whereas if you're in one of the other editorial playlists that is more about a particular genre or brand new music or whatever, you've got more chance of a follow-up from there. So the more that you listen to and work out where you want to be, it is no different to saying like, I make this music, so I think it should be at Jack Saunders, or I think it should be at this particular dance station. It's the same kind of principles. So rather than I've made this music, I'm going to try and get everywhere at once, or this big thing, more pay attention to the smaller things, because you're more likely to find a hardcore fan base off the back of that, which is really what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. So there's a couple of questions come in, which I will run through quickly. First of all, from Michael, you asked, who are you pitching to, and how do you know if you will be considered, especially for indies? So that's a good question. Now, if we're talking editorial pitching, you can find out, enough research online. I think you can probably find out a number of the editors. It would be a lot of rabbit holes on Google, but you probably could find a lot of that information out. But the key thing that all of the DSPs say in their messaging is that they want people to pitch through the official channels, and official channels are all of the for artists sections. So through Spotify for artists, for example, but also for Apple Music for artists and all the others. That's what they request everybody to do. Because that is where the editors are sitting on the other end of that, is that they're sitting there and they've got a dashboard of some description that has all of those releases coming in.
Does everybody know about the four artists? Because I've still come across people that don't know that they can actually get access to their own profiles on the DSP. So I'm like, if anybody's not sure about how to access Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Tidal, Deezer, just genuinely Google it, look at the official sources and not a third party. They all have websites that tell you how to get access. Some admittedly are easier than others, but yeah, just make sure that you have access to all of your own data so that you can actually do this pitching in the first place and see where you might be picking up plays from. Obviously, most people sort of gravitate towards Spotify and Apple. They're both important, stating the obvious. Apple also because it's got the Shazam side of it too. So if you do find that you're picking up playlists from or plays literally anywhere that somebody's held their phone up to see what it is, then you will know. But those things are like when you've started to release music, it's really important that you actually are able to see who's interacting with you and where those playlists might have come from.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting as well, one of the numbers that gets thrown around is that there's 100,000 tracks uploaded to streaming services a day. And think about that pure volume that is coming in. If you're on the other end of that and you're an editorial team trying to get through all of that music, that's not an easy job. That's a difficult task. So, anything you can do to try and get yourself more within the official channels with the platform, you should absolutely be taking the time to take advantage of that. But I'd also stress is all of the work that you do off platform, and we'll come on to that in a second. I think of talking about social media timelines and how that really should feed into things, because content strategy is such a core part of a timeline nowadays. But before we do that, I just wanted to there's a second question there as well. Vicky has asked, how soon is advisable to share a pre-save link? Can this be done up to 8 weeks ahead of time? Now, I would say it can actually be done as long as you would like to do it for. I wouldn't advise to do it for a year or 2 years. You might lose interest with your fans, but there's actually no reason why you can't do that. Similarly, you could do it the day before a track comes out. You could get a pre-save live. I would argue that best practice is somewhere in the region of 3 to 4 weeks, because that's a sort of window where you can keep your fan base engaged whilst bringing out more content and bringing people back to that pre-save link. And on that note, I'm going to jump ahead to a slide here that I think, Matt, we could run through this maybe in a bit more detail of this is how I tend to try and look at single releases in particular. Now, each single cycle tends to feed into an overarching album campaign or EP campaign or mixtape campaign, but generally speaking, you can break it down into a number of different phases within a single for each single campaign. And the way I often look at that is you've got your prep period, which let's say it's your pre-release. You have your pre-save campaign as well, which is once you announce that the release is coming. You have your release week, and then you have your post-release week activities. Now, for me, I've always found it really important to break that down, because actually the core functions and the core objectives really are actually quite different in each of those phases. So it's good to have it sort of separated into those sections. Now, obviously, an actual timeline doesn't look like this laid out here. It would be in the format that we were looking at just now that Matt had, or in a similar one, which again we'll share after this. But yeah, maybe Matt, let's run through each of these sections and highlight the key things to do in each of them.
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well, when I start putting these sort of timelines together with anybody, is that it genuinely is the skeleton. Like, anybody can put together something like this and make videos and take photos and play gigs. So that's what you're up against. It's everything that you said before about the volume of songs that are uploaded to the platforms every day, but also it's everything else that you're competing with. And like I said, anybody can do this. So whilst you're going through all of these things, it's what makes you different, and why should people care and pay attention, so that whether it's the editorial people that you're pitching to or actual fans, why are they with you? Because the thing that it's easy to get to some degree like too bogged down in is the stuff that we're talking about, which is important, but it doesn't mean that that should be all that you talk about. And there isn't a path or a protocol or an exact science to it. I've worked with bands before that have had like top 20, top 10 albums, and I look at their socials and think, I don't know how you're doing this, because all you do is tell your fans to do something all the time. There's nothing else there beyond writing songs, recording them, making gigs, making videos, doing gigs, and releasing albums. There's a loyalty with the fans, but there's nothing else there. What I learned is that you can't change people to be like running socials with or communications with like bags of personalities. Some are better at it than others, but when you do get the magic dust, so to speak, it's easier to a large degree, because they're doing all of these things that we've got here, but they're also entertaining and bringing more fans in as they go, because of who they are. It's the quality of the songs, the gigs, and everything else, but what they're doing to make themselves different. And I work with an Irish act called the Mary Wallopers that I think I might have mentioned to you a few days ago, that are sort of quite fiercely independent. But when we first started working with them a couple of years ago, they'd worked hard at shows and live fan base and online, made an album, and we were just sort of working out how far we thought we could actually go with it. That was a couple of years ago. They've done the second album now, and it's grown and grown and grown. But one of the reasons why I thought this could actually be vaguely straightforward is because they're really interesting and very funny and brilliant live, and it's a very clear proposition. They're like the best band to put in front of any audience. Like, they're not a Radio 1 demographic, but I could almost guarantee that if at any point they managed to get into daytime Radio 1 interviews or sessions, then people will be blown away by it, in the same way that they have been when we've got them on to Radio 2 or Six Music or wherever else. So this structure is one thing, but it's also, what do you do that makes you different, whether it's a part of this or not. So that was a long-winded way of going through that, but coming back to the actual sort of process that we're talking about here, if you want to talk about it this way, just feel free to tell me to like stop waffling or shut up at any point.
No, what I was going to say, Matt, is I think you touched on something else that's very important that we will be doing another masterclass on at some point, which is artist proposition and branding, and how you stand out in the market and how you get yourself noticed. and that's, you know, that is such a huge topic in itself, that you know, we haven't got time to go into that now. So I think, you know, if we apply a framework on these different phases, I think it would be useful to carry on building that, right, and what each of those phases looks like and what's important.
So the first, as we're looking at this as an example, then oh, hold on, sorry, I'm in a different picture here. Let me just reach forward. So yeah, looking at the screen that we've got working to here now, it is kind of like we were saying earlier on in the conversation, really, that the pre-release phase is kind of, I guess, like geared to what we were just talking about, which you're right, is a much bigger topic. But I think the way that I would look at it, with especially outside of the music, whatever it sounds like, just bear in mind that anybody can take a photo, anybody can make artwork, and anybody can make a video. What makes each of those elements specific to you, that without being gimmicky is going to get people's attention and make them like you even more or come to you afresh.
And just to interject there again, I think that's why it's so important to have the time to do this.
Yes.
And you know, I've worked countless campaigns over the years when everyone's tried to run before walking or putting the cart before the horse, you know, and actually the campaign starts and you haven't got lots of these things in place yet. But actually what that means is you end up with an uncohesive campaign. You end up with photos that each time you're putting out a new photo doesn't necessarily correlate with the one before, which means that you're jarring with your audience, for example, you know. So actually what you want to do is get ahead of that, get planning, and go, right, no, what's going to be the aesthetic for this campaign? What are the photos? What's our lead photo going to be that's going to be used across each step of the next 3, 4, 5 months, that people are going to be seeing every time they see me? There's going to be a lead on all of the socials, for example. It's going to be a lead on any press release, lead photo on press release. What's the artwork for each of the singles? So that, again, there's a good thread to tie it all together to make it as seamless and simple for new fans discovering you, to discover more about you and to stay within your world. So yeah, to go again, to take that back to the timeline though, that doesn't happen overnight. That takes planning, that takes thought, that takes time to book photo sessions, or even if you're doing that yourself or with a friend, you know, finding that time to actually get out to a location together to do that, to choose the right ones. You know, so I don't think you can underestimate how long those things can take. And you know, here we've got an estimate of 2 to 4 weeks, but you know, that could be even longer. But yeah, you know, I think, just to stress again in the timeline, give yourself the time to get that right.
Yeah, well,
to put the time
in this particular thing, we are obviously talking about a single, but if you were, for whatever reason, talking about an album and possibly 2 or 3 singles before it and some shows after it, then it's what works across all of that without repeating yourself over and over and over. But you've got a cohesion across the whole campaign. So if you think you know what the singles might be from it, what would the artwork be for 1, 2, and 3? What would the artwork be for the album? And then there's certain best practices across like any platform, whether it's a DSP or a social network or whatever. But when you are making music, I think one of the absolute catch-alls, whether you're something outlandishly cool or something that's very, very pop and mainstream, is the cohesion across all the platforms, so that when people do discover you and do like you, they know that you're the same act across Facebook and Spotify and Twitter and wherever. That's just something that applies to like anybody, I think, making any kind of music. I don't think that's wrong. It's one of the few things that you could say, like, whatever you're doing, make sure that you do that across each section. And it doesn't, not everything needs to look like super glossy or having loads of money spent on it. There's enough things that are free or cheap and easy to do online now in terms of creative elements. But I think it still comes back to like what's come out of you as an act to bring the music and the visuals to life. And it's the same thing applies through the pre-save part of it. Like with a lot of campaigns I work, it's a mix of when you're getting into the announcement and telling people they can pre-save your song, hopefully you would have worked on videos or some sort of visual content by that point. So it could be a short clip from a video that's not necessarily the chorus when you first release it. It could be something else, but just something that represents you and the track. It could be an artist talking to camera. It could be a mix of the two. It could be just a static image with a bit of audio on it. I'm sure there are like way more best practices and science behind it, but I find I'm sort of looking at each artist and label that I work with and what feels best for them and what are they most comfortable with. So I'd still within there say don't focus so much on you and your music and everything related to you. Balance it out with other things if you can. But in the terms of the bones and the skeleton of the campaign, then all of those things apply. It's down to you, like you said. The pre-save thing could be 3 or 4 weeks before release. Sometimes I do it like a week before, so that the fans haven't got too long to wait. I mean, if you want to move into the release week part of it now.
Well, I just wanted to touch quickly on what you can do on TikTok in that time frame as well. You know, and this, as everybody knows, has become the main discovery platform really over the last couple of years, the last few years, main music discovery platform. And one of the most interesting ways to use TikTok tends to be to actually release music before it's released on your streaming services, but just releasing a particular part of the song, the sound you use on TikTok, and making sure that's an engaging part of the song. So that could be the chorus, or it could be another hook in there, something that works particularly for TikTok. But I do think that that's really, it doesn't, if it's not right for you as an artist, then absolutely don't do that. But if TikTok is a platform that you want to use, do really think long and hard, is what I would say about teasing strategy on the platform.
Yeah, there's like there really is like a proper science to that. Most artists that I work with aren't in a situation where they're sort of needing to come through that as like the key driver to it. But when they do, and having looked at how enough other people work, it's like I don't find it particularly interesting in the way that a lot of artists use it, but there does seem to be like it's all about repetition, and then in fan interaction in the same way as like other platforms. But TikTok does, it's a law unto itself, and there are certain practices that if you want to genuinely make it work for you, then you need to look at the very much intricacies as to how it works. They all have intricacies, but TikTok in particular, you're right. They're all an art form, but TikTok is there's certain like absolute best practices there to make it work if that's going to be a core part of where you want to come from and your fan base to follow you from.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And so, Matt, should we run through quickly? Let's run through the release week maybe, and good activities to get done then. And then into post-release and some activities you can do to keep awareness and excitement going post a track coming out.
Yeah, so with the release week thing, one thing that we've not talked about yet, but it is part of the build-up in a lot of situations. Not every single one, but if I'm working with anybody where there's like any kind of fan base, one of the first things that I try and do is get people onto an email database. And possibly texting as well. Like when I'm moving into like album sales territory, the conversions from people being texted to actually going to buy something or pay attention is very, very high when you've got it. And with emails as well, because obviously on that particular platform, without writing War and Peace, it's easy to go into more detail as to what you've done and why, and explain things in more detail, the same way as like reading a newspaper or a particular website that you might be into. And you can see your open rates, you're way more in control of it, and you'd probably get a load of data from the back end as well that you won't get from literally just working social networks and then having to spend at least some degree of money if you've managed to build up a decent sized fan base to try and make sure that as many people there as possible have seen it. Email's much easier to work that way, and it only really starts to cost money you've managed to build up a decent sized database. So it's a good way to spend it. What normally happens with singles, at least, is that, like I was saying before, the assets don't change. It could be a clip, something bespoke, something to camera, the chorus of a video, something brand new. Right, it varies from artist to artist. There isn't like a one size fits all. It could be a mix of all that. In terms of the in-stores part of it that you've got there, that's become, when artists have built up good sized fan bases, a core part of selling albums these days that has probably, I think it started to work better just before COVID, but certainly afterwards, it's become a real core part of it for artists where, if they've got a good sized live following, and you might not have sold, or attempted to select lots of merchandise or physical music products or whatever at any point, the tipping point for it can genuinely be in stores. I've worked with artists before where they've got to decent sized gigs, playing festivals. You switch on an album pre-sale and you're talking about the D2C side of it, as in where the artist has their own online store. And it's okay, but it might feel a bit flat, and you're trying to work out why. Because they've got the live following, when you follow up, or it might be at the launch with the in-stores, that's when things start to change. And it's genuinely become anywhere between, like, I don't know, sort of 30 to 60% of what comes out of week one. The stores that are, there's probably a network of stores across the UK, like 20 to 30 now, that are, you're almost, it looks like you're announcing a tour. Basically, they just happen to be in record shops or places that are very close to them. But the stores that do it, anybody would know, UK or wherever, really, they're integral parts of the community. They've got their own fan communications that are really strong, and they all do a fantastic job to sell to their own audiences as much as yours. So you would normally, if you were doing in-stores, I would say you'd probably be announcing that part of it maybe a couple of months before release, so that it might take a little bit of time, as they do sometimes, to sell through or really engage, that you've got time to do it. So it's not quite the same as announcing a tour 6 months or a year before it happens, but you still need to give yourself plenty of time with those retailers to make sure that they all sell out as much as you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So your core driver, it's the real life touch point, isn't it? I think so.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to dive in on a couple of questions actually quickly here as well, just that have come in over the last few minutes. I'm not going to do this fully in the order they come in. I'm going to jump up onto the questions coming about going back onto what we were asking about teasing on TikTok before release, what we mean by that, and a lot of the advice that Nikki has seen online is wait until the track is available for use on Insta and TikTok, but with some labels it isn't available until after release. So to clarify on that, what we mean by teasing on TikTok is releasing a small part of your track on TikTok, which is referred to as a TikTok sound. Now, when you release your music fully through your distributor, a snippet of the track is automatically, usually for most distributors, delivered to TikTok as the official sound for people to be able to use on the platform. Now, you can change which part by using time codes. You can actually set, or you should be able to set with your distributor, which bit of the song actually is used on TikTok sounds. And what you can also do is set it to release just that snippet on TikTok only prior to the track coming out for release on the main streaming platforms. So it may require a separate setup with a distributor. Every distributor is slightly different. And it may depend on your particular distributor you are working with. So explore alternatives, explore options if this is something that you are interested in doing. And the reason for doing it is just for awareness on the platform. It's not necessarily the right thing to do. It's something to consider, is what I would say. And if the music's available before your track comes and it starts getting a bit of traction, it can then build more excitement and awareness before your track comes out. So that was what I just wanted to give a bit more context on there. A couple of other questions. Someone's asked, Maya has asked, how can you ensure that pre-save phases don't feel too repetitive or strung out? I've discovered many artists through TikTok, which is great. However, sometimes the teasing is so constant that the wait becomes frustratingly long. Fair enough. It's a fair question. And again, there isn't a right or wrong way that to do this. It's what's right for you and for your audience and for your fan base. I've seen some very successful campaigns of people who of artists who have been brilliant at driving pre-saves. You know, that they've actually built and cultivated fan bases that actually expect that, and they incentivize fans by giving things away, for example, on TikTok if they hit a certain number of pre-saves of a track. And you know, some artists that would be an awful thing to do, and their fan base wouldn't like that at all, and it wouldn't resonate with them. With others, it can work really well, and that's what they come to expect from that artist. So yeah, I would stress again, do what's right for you, and what feels right. Try things, I think, is another core message that I would like to get. You know, I'd like to get across, to find the right thing for you as an artist and for your fan base. In terms of not making them too repetitive, I think that plays the same thing again. Like, try something different, and if something works, it doesn't matter if you repeat it the next time. It might feel repetitive to you, it'll probably not feel repetitive to people consuming your music or your videos on TikTok in particular. So that's some thoughts I'd give along those. Then another couple of questions. But before we dive into some other questions, I just wanted to touch on socials a little bit more, just while we've still got time here, because I've got one eye on time. We are running late into our hour here. So I just wanted to touch on socials really, and the importance of social posting within all of this. And again, this generally feeds into a master timeline. So we showed a bit of Matt's template that he uses earlier. This is done in Excel or Google Sheets, and is actually a timeline and a social posting calendar that is actually split by platform. Now, we haven't filled this out here because this would be what you would do as an artist. But the reason why I think it's worth highlighting this and why we do this is that actually each platform is different. What you're trying to achieve with each platform should be different. Again, this will be another deep dive we will do in the coming weeks in another masterclass. But you know, what you're posting on TikTok should be different from what you're posting on Instagram, which should be different from what you're posting on YouTube. And on this template, we've just got those three called out, but you could extend that further into what you're posting on Twitter, what you're posting on Facebook still maybe might work for some artists. So, you know, and I think it's important to have that in your mind when you're generating your content, and then thinking about that proactively upfront, mapping it out, getting it laid out, making it clear who's responsible for what. That's what this owner column is, what your caption is. Again, thinking about that up front, what hashtags you might use to when you actually post that content. So yeah, really, I just wanted to highlight this as a core part of building a campaign timeline can be a social posting calendar. Matt, is this something that you would use campaign?
Thankfully there's fewer artists, but it still does go on where they've linked Instagram and Facebook. So one of the first things is like, don't do that. You need to post on them both separately. And then the other one, more in terms of Facebook, but there's enough people that still fall into the trap, is that they just link straight out to YouTube. Whereas I think that there's sort of whys and wherefores, but the main thing with anybody I'm working with really is like, put a short clip up onto Facebook and then use the link out to YouTube, but don't just have YouTube as it. Basically, that probably goes on more than the linking of the channels. But yes, absolutely. I think there's one part of it, again, without trying to be sort of too airy-fairy about it, that it's important to have this and have the structure related to like the campaign and releases and whatever events, but also without it needs to be formal to some degree, but not boring at the same time. It's like, what else are you going to say, or is there anything else that you want to say outside of what it is that you're actually doing? So that's a part of it as well. The things that are campaign related are balanced out with other things that hopefully make you interesting to the people that are into you, and then more besides. Again, like, there's no why or wherefore to it. There's enough people that do just talk about themselves and are perfectly successful, but there's other people that have a wider range of topics to talk about. And then if that, without trying to make it a PR cause, the amount of times where things that I wouldn't have gone into a campaign predicting they would go a particular way and ended up getting more notoriety in a positive way is because that artist has been interesting and voiced an opinion that's then spread wider. It's like, to some degree, the horrible conversations that we used to have in major labels, and I think I used to sigh at that point as well when YouTube came into being, and it was, how do we make something viral? I'm sure that conversation still goes on all too often, although thankfully not in too many conversations for me. But it's just like the answer a lot of the time is like, you can't. Something's going to go viral because normally it's unexpected and something you might want to run with, something you might want to like put a cap on straight away.
Certainly,
But I'm yet to make something viral.
yeah, certainly don't build a campaign around something going viral. It's a bonus if
Exactly.
it happens and you can maximize it. And um, so I just wanted to take it back slightly to a question here that came up here around how much time we should put into this. And I think particularly as we go into social media marketing here, and because we've talked through a lot of things here, and that to say it's a lot of this could be a full-time job is an underestimation, because it's literally a number of people's jobs in different spaces. And you have social media experts, you have marketing experts, um, and the list could go on. So I think it's hard for an artist, an independent artist, to do a lot of this. What I would suggest as a way to handle it is going right back to what we talked about at the beginning of this session, is get ahead of it. So start planning before as you finish your music. It could even be before that, but get planning, start putting aside specific time to do specific things. So social media can be a full-time job in itself. If you're literally waking up thinking, what am I going to do today? You start generating bits of content, you're not quite happy with it, you do again, you try something else. So actually, can you instead put aside half a day to go and get loads of content done? And this is how, when we work closely with artists, this is how we often approach things: is put in a content day, get as much in the bag as you can, identify your content pillars, so the things that you are comfortable with generating that content around, so that you can go into it proactively, get a lot of it in the bag ready to go, and then put in time aside to do your pitches to the DSPs. Find that time so that you're not sort of thinking, oh damn, I haven't done that yet, I need to sit down and do that. Put it in. Once you've got it in that timeline, go, right, I'm going to spend this half an hour or this hour every day going back to my timeline, looking at the activities I need to do today, and having that concerted time and effort to do it. Because otherwise it is very hard to juggle with everything else going on, in life, not least making new music. And ultimately that's what everyone here, I think, is doing and wants to be doing. And hopefully this masterclass on building a campaign timeline will hopefully help you build out good timelines, good strategies, and lead to some successful campaigns. I mean, you can focus on your music a lot more. So yeah, we've run out of time. So I just wanted to wrap up, firstly by saying a huge thank you to Matt today for some amazing insights and experience, and years of experience of some very successful marketing campaigns. So thank you very much for everybody here. Thank you for everybody for attending. This has been, as I say, our first masterclass here at Unheard. We're going to be doing these on a monthly basis going forward, and we're going to be covering all range of topics. We want to hear from you as well, so we'll be following up on an email after this. Please give us your feedback. Please let us know any further questions that come up, and we will answer all of those. Apologies if we didn't get to any through the Q&A during this session. And finally, I just wanted to say as a thank you to everybody here that we will be offering a exclusive discount to our new pro membership at Unheard, and with an exclusive code which is unmasterclass50, all in capital letters. We will send that via email as well. But yeah, that's to get 50% off if you sign up for a full year to the pro membership, which gives you exclusive Unheard features as a fan hub, website builder. There's a discount to all of our marketing tools, which allow you to do lots of the marketing activities we ran through today, and lots more. So dive in. As I say, we will follow up with an email and send more details, and we will see you in a few weeks' time for the next masterclass. Thank you all very much.